All right, last week, 5 Premier League selections, 5 winners from the most efficient betting market in the world, guys. Well done to Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Not so great elsewhere, but you see, we focus on the positive. We're a glass half full podcast always. Adrian Clarke, welcome back, mate. How was the week? Busy week for Europe and the Hawthorns this week.
Yeah, busy all week. Yeah, got to a couple of games. West Brom Blackburn wasn't very exciting, but no, all right. I'm in a bit of pain this morning. Played 5-a-side for the second time in a row, and my Achilles is screaming at me. So but not to worry. I'll soldier on.
Doesn't get any easier, mate, with the passing years. As it just gets one step harder each and every year. Mark O'Haire, we're not quite at AC's age, no respect, AC. But yeah, look, split week for you in Europe last week, but nonetheless, 30% ROI in the season on Matchbook Insights, 22 winners from your last 26. But Serie A goals bet not getting up, Mark. What's the story there? We don't know. We don't.
There's in fairness, Serie A had a bit of a downgrade in goals in the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately, we didn't get over the line with Empoli and Cagliari. Plenty of opportunity to do so, but one of those things. Sometimes the betting gods don't fall in your lap and don't fall your way. Yeah. So it wasn't the case of Empoli. But yeah, I mean, looking at the coupon this weekend, it's a tricky one actually on the continent, and particularly in Italy. There's no sort of standout obvious goal selections there, and for me, I think this weekend in Italy will probably just be take a step back, just see what's happening. There's a few teams kind of going in different directions and reanalyze things. Particularly, we're back to a European week and a European week next week as well, and that can throw up its inconsistencies across the board too. So, these teams, a lot of them haven't played sort of European football since December or so. So, interesting to see what they do this weekend. Is there many changes? Is there any patterns to kind of keep an eye out on? But a tricky one, but hopefully found a couple later in the show to share.
And great shout on Liverpool last night as well. Your best bet of the Champions League week was 2 point. I think they went off actually a bit bigger, actually, Mark, about 2.2. I think you took them on the Asian handicap, but great shout there. Very quick recap on last week. So we had 5 Premier League bets, 5 winners. Spurs, Wolves under 2.5, 1.75. Wolves plus the goal. They won 2-0, but we had a bit of security there. Leicester, West Ham over 2.5. No major issues there, guys. Everton, Leeds. Everton over 2.5. Everton helped us out there immensely. And Man City to win to 0. AC, your best bet of the week, 1.9. Well played, sir. Very well played. Like to see that. All right, let's move on to this week. Before we actually get going, guys, if you are now listening to us in the podcast app this week, please leave us a preferential review if you're enjoying the content, or if you're watching us over on YouTube or elsewhere, please leave us a review. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Click the subscribe button. And as ever, we appreciate it. We'll never charge for this content, so give us say some nice things, and it helps our content get out to a wider audience. All right, Man City Spurs is where we're going to start this week, and Mark, I'm going to start with you here on this one. Saturday evening kickoff in Manchester. You can back City at 1.3, fresh from a big win in Portugal. Tottenham Hotspur 13.0, the draw available at 6.2. Tottenham getting a goal and a half start, and the main Asian handicap line, which is 2.06, and you can back City, which was a very popular bet during the week as well, to win by 2 goals or more at 1.83. The cat is out of the bag on this City team. They're kind of good. They're pretty good. 3 is the main goal line, slightly shaded towards the under. And Mark, look, the superlatives have been thrown around about this City team on the Champions League podcast during the week. Yourself and Jonathan liked City to win in under 3.5 goals, but I never had a chance. However, that same bet this week. And again, when we want to get with City, we're not going to just sit in this podcast and say, back up at 1.3. We have to find an angle in with them. And you think that's the way in again this week?
Yeah, I mean, it's never a comfortable ride opposing goals in a Man City match, and they showed that midweek. I thought there was a touch of fortune, despite them being completely dominant in that match, with some of those goals. Some fantastic finishes, particularly Bernardo Silva's in the first half. A bit of fortune as well, with a few deflections falling into their lap. But I mean, I think it's easy when you look at this match and you see City's price to be a bit turned off, but it's supposed to be an all Big Six clash. It's supposed to be competitive, but the odds in the market suggest it won't be. And that has been the norm for Man City when hosting Spurs over the last 3 years. So the biggest price they've gone off at in the Premier League at the Etihad has been 1.37. Very similar prices when they've hosted Arsenal and Man United, who you'd probably put in the same bracket as Spurs. You have to try and find a really sound argument to suggest that the odds in the market are drastically wrong here. Otherwise, you have to accept that City are probably the best team on the planet right now. and how can we try and get them on side in a backable or a price which you feel you can support. So 20 wins from 25 in the Premier League, 19 wins from 22 across all comps since the start of November. The only defeat was a dead rubber against Leipzig in that spell. They've beaten Chelsea, Arsenal, United and PSG in that sequence. And their record in the matches that really matter in the Premier League, really strong. 7 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat against the top 8. Of course, that defeat was against Spurs on the opening day, but I always feel there's a few caveats to opening day results. But yeah, I think we get the picture. There's no secret of Man City. They are the best. They are the most dominant, the most controlling team, best at limiting chances, strangling teams, creating, converting, etc. really. And then you look at Spurs, who have chucked in 2 real horror shows really against Southampton and Wolves. Now 3 defeats on the spin if you include the Chelsea game. Chelsea team who've beaten them 3 times this calendar year already. 6 league defeats in 9 against teams above them in the Premier League table. But I think the past week has been really quite a shock to the system for Tottenham and their supporters. Antonio Conte has looked and sounded incredibly miserable, downbeat, pessimistic and negative. He's actually doing a good impression of Jose Mourinho right now. And
I'm trying not to laugh. I'm trying not to smile. Sorry, keep going.
But I was going to say, it's something that kind of you talked about previously, Adrian, about when managers talk about players being tired. But if he consistently says the squad's not good enough, the players aren't there, expectations are too high, that's going to manifest itself negatively in that squad. Surely it's not the best medicine for those players right now. And I worry about them here. Giving up over 4 expected goals to Southampton and Wolves, allowing 6 big chances in those 2 matches. They've conceded multiple goals, I think, in the last 4 Premier League games without a clean sheet in 8. At a venue that they tend to struggle traditionally, 8 defeats and 11 Premier League visits to the Etihad. It's really hard to be positive about them, but ultimately, I'm never really one to get too excited about backing a team to overcome a big handicap hurdle, particularly in a supposedly a big match. So I think City to win under 3.5 goals is fair enough at the price. You know, getting close to 2.2. That's the best you can really conjure up here. And take out the 5-0 thrashing of Arsenal, who had Xhaka sent off in that match. City's only match. That's actually City's only match against the best teams in the division to feature 4 or more goals. And I think Spurs, if they've got any sort of sense, will not come out with a kind of offensive gung-ho approach, an attack-minded approach. They will try and sit in, contain, counter. It's what's worked for them previously against Man City under previous coaches. It's what worked for them at the start of the season. I think Conte would be probably a bit foolish to try and play City at their own game. So in that regard, I back City to break them down and eventually score, and win the match. But yeah, it's a tricky one, just knowing how good City can be.
Adrian, Mark touched on it there in terms of content. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I've found in the past, obviously, look, this isn't news to anybody. Obviously, when he gets 2 or 3 years into a role, sometimes the toys come out the pram. You know, he gets a bit agitated. But the problem is, he's only been in this role 4 months, not even that, 3 or 4 months or whatever. And like, even from a player's perspective, for him to be criticizing the transfer policy in the previous couple of years, I mean, the problem is all those players that were brought in are most likely still there. So, I mean, it's hard to motivate as a player when your manager is saying, why are the half of you guys here?
The mood must be really low in the dressing room, because he's a hard taskmaster anyway. So sessions are going to be tough. I think they're going to be a whole bunch of laughs going on, and then they sort of see these interviews and quotes from these interviews. It's pretty damning of Paratici, isn't it? The new director of football.
And the whole point of it coming in was his whole relationship with him at Juventus or whatever.
He's also spoken a bit of garbage. I think Conte talking about the players that have left, important players for Spurs. Well, if they were that important, he'd have used them, and he wasn't using them. He didn't fancy them. He's trying to make out it's not sold as seen, isn't he? He's trying to say that he took the job and didn't expect it to be like this. But I mean, any kind of research, on Tottenham would have screamed at him that this would have been the case. It's a real test of his coaching credentials. I think in this match he has to go back to basics, and that's just get the team to be solid and to defend. He's got Kane, Son, Moura up front, who would always pose a danger. They've delivered against City before, albeit on home turf. So yeah, I think they're going to be very cautious. And to be honest, if you look at Spurs away from home under Conte, a lot of the games have been low scoring, under 2.5 goals. I think in 4 or 5 in the Premier League. You look at City, 9, clean sheets from 12 home games. So they don't give a lot away, do they? They're not offering up too many gifts, Manchester City. But on the same, in the same token, they can be held on occasion, can't they? Southampton did it relatively recently. Others have pushed them close. So I'm aligned, I think, with Mark here. I think it's a pick-em in terms of which way you go. If you are scared by the under 3.5, you could go Manchester City to win to nil, which is a pretty similar price, actually. I think it's just comes in slightly shorter at 2.12. Manchester City and BTTS no. So if you think that they'll keep another clean sheet, you think it'll be a really dominant victory, and you want to keep 4-0 onside, maybe 5, then that might be the way for you. But you can't look outside Manchester City, even if Spurs have got a good record against them in North London. It's not the case away from home. This time last year, I think it was, or in the fixture last year, they lost 3-0 Spurs at the Etihad Stadium, and that's kind of where I think this match is most likely to head. They've been brilliant, haven't they? So yeah, it's absolutely superb. And even if those guys that were outstanding against Sporting Lisbon arrested for this one, the ones coming in are just as lethal, aren't they? So yeah, champion select for sure, and lots of work for Conte to do.
I think you just touched on it there. It shows where City are when we're actually fearful of a top 6 side in a 4-0 or 5-0 win. It just shows their dominance and where they are. All right, City to win on 3.5 is the general consensus. There is currently available at 2.18, just under 6-5 at matchbook.com. All right, we move on. Battle of the Roses, Yorkshire versus Lancashire. This Leeds United versus Manchester United. Adrian, I'll start with you here for this one, but let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com at the time of recording on Thursday morning. You can back the home side here. Leeds is 4.1, Manchester United 1.92, 3.8 is the draw. If you want to keep the draw on side with Leeds, you can back them on the main Asian handicap line at plus 0.5 goal, and that's even money at 2.0. And the goal line is 2.75. That'll appear on site at 2.5/3.0. Half your bet on 2.5, half your bet on 3.0, and that's tilted towards the over there, 1.83 or 5-6. Adrian, Leeds, hard side to get a read on the last couple of weeks in terms of consistency. Brilliant one week, not so good the next week. You could make the case about Manchester United. Like, if they go goal up, they just seem to be kind of drawing 1-1, obviously, albeit it didn't happen against Brighton. It's a hard one to read, right?
It is a hard one, yeah. Man United are putting in 45-minute performances, aren't they? That's it. It can even be the first half or the second half. I think I did a piece on that for the Premier League 2 games ago, and the next 2 games have followed exactly the same pattern where United are good for one half and really bad in the next. So, yeah, they're a hard team to get a grip on. I think with Leeds against the big teams, it's slightly easier. It's very easy to oppose them, I have to say. Leeds, their record against the so-called big boys is not great, especially at Ellen Road. Actually, they don't have a particularly good record there against them. They got a 0-0, didn't they, in this fixture last season? Leeds at home to United, but in the corresponding fixtures, battered both times. 5 and 6, I think, in the last 2 seasons. And in those games, it was really interesting. United destroyed their man marking setup, runners from deep, just causing absolute carnage to them. And I can see them trying that again, even though they've got a different manager now in Rangnick. I'm sure he'll recognise that and try to play that way, try and get those runners from the wide areas and from midfield to go beyond. And I think they can cause massive problems for a Leeds team that are shorn of their spine. I don't think we can ignore that. I'm not going to hammer Bielsa here. I'm not going to hammer his players, but they've lost their best centre half. They've lost their key man in central midfield, best player, and they've lost their goal scorer in Patrick Bamford and focal point. It's going to hurt you. And yeah, I can't get on side with them here. I think the overs is interesting. I have to say, when I first looked at this fixture, my initial instinct was overs, over 2.75. I'll tell you why just quickly. Manchester United and Leeds are ranked 3rd and 6th for chances created this season. So there's no problem going forward. They do create plenty of opportunities. Open play goals, which obviously are a good gauge of how you attack. Man United are 3rd in the Premier League behind Liverpool and City. So even if we think that they've stuttered, and they have, and they've been a bit stale at times, only Liverpool and Man City have scored more from open play than Manchester United, and that's down to talent, isn't it? And then you flip it around and look at Leeds defensively, and only Norwich have faced more shots. Manchester United are ranked 14th for shots faced. Watford have faced fewer shots than Man United this season, which is just mad, really, when you think about it. Well, maybe not so mad when Roy Hodgson's in charge, but you know what I'm saying. It's it could be a really open game, but my overwhelming feeling is that United are better than Leeds, and that United will, on the back of that good second half against Brighton, continue where they left off and just have too much really for the Leeds defence. I just can't. You look at how they were against Everton, really weak, feeble. Villa, bad goals they gave away. Most weeks they've been shipping goals that they shouldn't really. So yeah, I have to side with Manchester United, and then it's a pick 'em, isn't it? Do you go on the nose, which I think is okay at 1.91, or you could go Manchester United and over 1.5 goals and get a slightly better price, which effectively just takes out the 1-0 win. My only worry with that is that it was 0-0 in this fixture last year, and Leeds, you know, they might be fired up to keep them at bay in front of their own fans. But yeah, Manchester United to win is my selection here.
Yeah, slightly better actually, Adrian, at 1.92. Mark, what are you making of this one? Look, Adrian said it there. It's no surprise. You've got, you know, probably your best defender, your best midfielder in terms of Phillips, and then Bamford misses one. It's not only just that, it's 3 leaders in your team too. 3 guys that you would say, look, captain, probably vice captain, and whatever else thereafter. But Mark, would you be confident enough at 1.92 to get there with United, or is there a different way in for you?
No, I like United in this game. You talk about the injuries, and for many of the reasons Adrian's talked about already, but Stuart Dallas went off last week as well. He's a very influential player, very versatile as well. Looks like he's certain to be missing out as well this weekend. Junior Firpo might be back, but that's a downgrade regardless in that position. So, yeah, I don't get Leeds right too often this season. I thought there'd be goals last week, but we got that winner. But I fully expected Leeds to play their part in that match. And I know Rodrigo hit the bar twice, but thoroughly outplayed. No shots on target, conceded 21 shots. Quite alarming, really. And ultimately, they've only won 5 league games all season. Performances this calendar year have been very good to very bad. And I expect them to be somewhere towards the good in this match, considering the high-profile nature of the match. But yeah, I mean, there is... Adrian touched on it. Their record against the best teams since being promoted has been pretty poor. This season alone against the top half, they've lost 8, drawn twice, and won just the once, conceding twice or more in 8 of those 9 games as well. It's not just actual goals either. If you drill into the performance data, it makes pretty uncomfortable viewing in terms of expected goals and chances conceded against the league's elite. Last season, they collected 45 of their overall 59 points against teams that finished below them in the table. And I thought the price on United was fair enough, actually. Last season, they went off at 1.83 in this fixture. I know with the eye test, they haven't been that great, but since Solskjaer's moved on, they have been accumulating points. 7 wins, 5 draws, just the 1 defeat. Failed to score just once in that spell. Only conceded 2 or more goals twice in the Premier League. And ultimately, their away record in the Premier League since the start of last season has been very, very strong. Just 2 defeats, scored in every away game this season, and they're up against the Leeds defence that's conceded 26th in the last 9 Premier League games. 8 of those 9 games going over 2.5 goals. So, yeah, I'm happy to take United on the nose, or United to win and over 1.5 goals, which is going to be my selection just because the price is a nice increase. I just think Leeds defensively just cannot be relied upon to keep this United team in check.
All right, let's take United on the nose. It's not that rare we back them, lads. 1.92, you can back them, which shows we're unbelievably impartial here, and it's all about the spot, but it hopefully should be a good game up in Yorkshire. All right, next game, Mark, is your choice. Southampton against Everton. Potential to be a good one, this one. Southampton, pretty good form of late. 2.12, you can back the Saints. Everton, you can back 3.75, which is also 11-4 in fractional terms. 3.65, you can back the draw. Everton getting a quarter of a goal start on the Asian handicap at 2.1, and 2 3/4 again is the total here, slightly shaded towards the under. Mark, I think a lot of people are going to go into this. If you're picking a side, you're most likely to maybe potentially leave with Southampton, but that is a short price at 2.12 for a team that, on their data can be really good, but to trust. But you feel there's a way in here away from the match odds and to be looking at a goals angle.
Yeah, I picked this game because I think it's got real potential to be quite fun, quite entertaining. So yeah, I'm happy to sort of take a range of different potential angles into this match, whether it be both teams to score or over 2.5 goals. The Premier League as itself is averaging 2.78 goals per game, which is actually bang in line with Southampton's average across the whole campaign. But Everton's average goals per game so far this season is sitting at 3.00. And if you consider Frank Lampard's only been in charge for 2 of those matches, that's already quite encouraging. We know through past experience with his Derby and Chelsea teams, there's a heavy focus on going forward. Defending is definitely secondary. And Lampard said himself when he took the Everton job that he needed to fix the attack, and his priority was to play fun, entertaining, attack-minded football. We saw that last week against Leeds, 21 shots, very dominant from start to finish. No real surprise that they were quite a handful again in attack with Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin there. So I like their prospects of getting on the score sheet here. I know their away record has been pretty rotten. They were desperate at Newcastle in the previous match, but I think last week would have given a bit of a confidence boost, a bit of a mindset sort of reset. So yeah, I like them. Defensively, they're going to be about Mina, Godfrey and Doucouré again, which does weaken that spine. And Southampton are interesting. I mean, I wouldn't be totally put off by the price on them to win this match because I think they've been very impressive of late. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl has put his hat into the ring as an outside candidate for Manager of the Year, to be honest. I think is a remarkable turnaround in fortunes, considering the players that have left the club, the low-key recruitment, and what he's engineered out of this squad to where they are. You know, it's very, very impressive. Since September, they've scored in all but 2 of their Premier League games. The only 2 they failed. 2 were at Arsenal and Liverpool, and they probably should have scored at the Emirates. They are without a clean sheet themselves since November's international break, which means 11 of the last 13 have featured both teams to score winners, including the last 8 as well. So, yeah, I really like the prospect of both teams getting on the score sheet here. It is a shorter price, but we've already put a few reasonable odds prices up already. So I wouldn't be averse to this. If you look at both teams' records, specifically towards home and away, 7 of 11 for Southampton and 7 of 11 for Everton, home and away respectively, have featured both teams scoring, which is maths isn't great for me, 65% around that mark, which is reasonable enough, really. And I just think, you know, just the way in which these 2 teams might attack this match, you know, there's not a huge amount. Obviously, Everton have still got relegation hanging over their head, but I think they'll feel this is a winnable game. Southampton will too. Both teams in a decent headspace. Key players and forward areas are fit and available. Should be a good one.
Yeah, look, Adrian, I think with this one, the great thing about Hasenhüttl, right, and it's a very similar system that Rangnick obviously tried to bring in at United. The big difference what he has, and obviously he's been there a few more years, he's got buy-in from the players. And you can see that in the Southampton performances. Again, maybe it's just a different profile of the players. Maybe there's a bit more youth there, but they just buy into it. In agreement with Mark here, or do you fancy something on the side?
No, yeah, in agreement. The 2 bets that leapt off the page when I was researching this fixture were both teams to score or Southampton. I think you have to fancy Southampton because of the way that they're playing. They were superb, weren't they, against Spurs? But that's not the only good performance. You know, they've put in a number in recent weeks. Yeah, Ward-Prowse has been outstanding, but so have several of the players. You can't trust them at the back, though. That's the thing that sort of worries me a little bit. I think it's 13 without a clean sheet. So even though they always score, or always seem to score, they very rarely shut out the other end. Everton, 6 points from 11 away games. It's miserable, isn't it? And I have to say that Lampard, even though I think it's a good soundbite to say I'm going to focus on the attack and make us great to watch and blah 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 blah, I think their off the ball work is very mediocre. I really do. They were a mess when Rafa Benitez left, and they've gifted up a few chances, albeit not against Leeds last time out, but in the away game at Newcastle they certainly did. So yeah, I think that defence is not one you can trust yet, especially with so many players out. So yeah, I think everything does point towards both teams scoring. I think you'd certainly have to fancy Southampton, who haven't lost at home, by the way, since late September. They draw a lot of games, and that's that one little piece in my head putting me off of backing the Saints here, is that they often draw. And if you do think Everton are going to nick at least one, then it puts the pressure on them to score 2, and that's been a bit of an issue for them at St Mary's this season. So yeah, I think we're better off playing it safer here with both teams to score angle. It has that feel about it.
Yeah, like Mark said there, it is short of 1.7. It probably is our absolute minimum. However, look, matchbook, you can do plenty of multiples if it's one of those ones you want to throw in and away with you. But look, it seems like a very solid bet. And I have zero issues personally backing a 1.7 shot in a single. Adrian, your game of choice is Newcastle trip to take on West Ham. Should be a good one. Early kickoff on Saturday. 1.73, you can back the Hammers. An informed Liverpool or Newcastle side, even with 3 wins on the bounce of 5.2. The draw available 4.2. Newcastle getting 3/4 a goal start on the main Asian handicap line at even money. 2.5 is the total. Adrian, I touched on Newcastle there being good form. It's kind of the opposite with West Ham. It's not been great, and obviously they're outside the Champions League spots now after Manchester United's win over Brighton. What do you make of this one? Trippier's big loss for Newcastle, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a big loss. Yeah, definitely. Well, in the goal scoring department, you wouldn't have predicted that, would you? But yeah, that is a blow. But as a team, they're playing well, aren't they? But with a bit more confidence. Obviously, 3 wins in a row is fantastic, and it surprises me how robust they've been, really, because you look at the starting 11, the midfield in particular with Willock, Joel Linton, and Shelvey. You think, well, where's the solidity there? But they've been doing all right. They've been sort of playing relatively front foot stuff and causing other teams issues. And they've worked really hard for Eddie Howe. So yeah, there's reasons to feel encouraged, I think, if you're a Newcastle fan. Yeah, West Ham are having a bit of a flat spot. It is the Jared Bowen show, isn't it? He's been sensational. I think it's got to be in the mix for the sort of team of the season, player of the year categories. He's been tremendous. Only Salah has had more direct goal involvements than Jared Bowen. But Antonio looks out of sorts, a bit off colour. You could probably say the same for the other guys, Fornals and Ben Rama, not in top form. I think even Declan Rice has had a little bit of a dip. And against Leicester, they deservedly conceded 2 goals. It could have been even more, really. So, yeah, I'm looking at this, and I actually like Newcastle on the handicap. They've got a good record at London Stadium. I think they've won on their last 2 visits there. They're obviously in fine fettle at the moment, and with a +1, you get your money back if they lose by a goal. That is appealing to me, I have to say, because I don't see West Ham and their form blowing anyone away at the moment. I just don't. I don't think they're in that sweet spot in the zone to do that. So yeah, I think this would be a tight game. I think the draw is a real player. I think you quoted it at 4.1, didn't you? So which obviously would make Newcastle +1 a viable option. So yeah, it's a 1.72 shot. Be a bold one given their season so far, but just using my eyes, and I don't see West Ham firing, and I see Newcastle team with a lot more confidence. So that's definitely a pick worthy of consideration, as is both teams to score. West Ham, I think, have scored in every home game this season. They've scored in 7 of their last 8 games, and Newcastle, as I've outlined, are chipping away, aren't they? Scoring with a lot more frequency. So yeah, both teams to score is a good shout here, but so too is Newcastle +1.
Mark, of those ones, in agreement with either, both, or what's your general viewpoint on this one?
More in tune with goals, just because Newcastle, unbeaten since Boxing Day in 5, have obviously put themselves in a much stronger position to survive. But I felt they rode their luck at Leeds away. They were dominant against Everton, absolutely deserved that. Defended pretty well considering the injuries against Villa as well. But yeah, credit to Eddie Howe for engineering that turnaround. But if I'm nitpicking, 2 of the winning goals against Leeds and Villa came from direct free kicks, which is a rarity. Obviously, the confidence that brings with those 2 wins supersedes those concerns, I guess. But they'll get Matt Targett back, but there's no Trippier, no Manquillo. I think Lascelles has been ill as well, so they might be a little bit short defensively. And I don't think they need a huge amount of sort of upheaval at the back to be considered a bit of a concern, because that is where their weaknesses has been. And also their record against the better teams in the division is up isn't fantastic. 1 point from a possible 27 against the teams in the top 8, I think it is. They've done their best work against teams in the bottom half. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to assess West Ham at the minute. The performance levels have been quite wide and varied. Outplayed by a scratch Leeds team here not long ago, fumbled their way past Watford, needed that last-minute goal against Leicester. So no real eagerness to support them either. And that's why I thought both teams to score at around 1.8 was the interesting one. Not often you get that kind of price in a Premier League match, particularly between two teams who defensively have been suspect. West Ham just 6 clean sheets all season. I know 4 of those are coming against the bottom 4, but they've still landed both teams scoring in 65% of their games, including 9 of 12 at the London Stadium. And Newcastle, as we know, clean sheets are a bit of a rarity, particularly away from home. And West Ham haven't yet failed to score at home so far this season, whereas Newcastle have scored in 18 of 23 Premier League games themselves, which is really impressive considering their situation. So, yeah, I'd be a backer of both teams to score at 1.8 or above.
Yeah, and look, I think Adrian there, Mark touched it. I know Lascelles is back, but I think Keogh being out, there probably is the potential that he may go with a back 3 there, and that always kind of scares me potentially when you go from a solid back 4 to a 3. So let's take the both teams to score there. Don't dislike obviously Newcastle +1 just under 8 to 11. Happy enough for that, AC?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. No, absolutely. No, I think that both teams to score is a very good shout. It's just a hunch that I don't see West Ham blowing Newcastle away in the game, but yeah, both teams to score is probably the safer angle.
And like all the fanfare about it, we haven't seen Bruno Guimaraes yet. It's a funny one, isn't it? He's been loyal to the guys that are winning games. Hard to change a winning team too, isn't it? Try the balls, free kicks or that. All right, let's do a very quick recap of what we have there so far. So we've got first game we covered Manchester City against Tottenham. So we have City to win and under 3.5 goals, which is a 2.18 currently at matchbook.com. We fancy Manchester United to beat Leeds at 1.92. Both teams to score bets, yes, in the next 2 games, Southampton and Everton. We just covered it there. West Ham and Newcastle. Insights.matchbook.com is the place to find those bets because, again, look, we'll have another few bets after this. We don't expect you to remember all of them, but go to insights.matchbook.com. From Thursday afternoon onwards, there'll be a full recap of those bets and little video clips within them as well, just in case you want a very quick recap of that as well. Adrian, Swindon, Carlisle. Swindon are obviously looking a playoff hunt right now. Carlisle are going the other direction, could be potentially going down a league in the next couple of weeks. And they're 2.28 to winner. This is one you fancy. Yeah,
it's just one that caught my eye. I thought it was a good price. Swindon have the second best away record in the division. They've earned, I think, 8 or 9 points more away from home than they have at home. They've not been in the best of form of late. I have to sort of say that as a disclaimer. But last time out, they beat Scunthorpe 3-0. Harry McCurdy is their sort of star guy, ponytailed centre forward, and he's having a great season. He's a former Carlisle player, and yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he went back and haunted them in this one. They're a really good attack-minded side, Swindon. They keep the ball for fun. They've had the second most shots from open play in the division, and it's a big pitch at Carlisle. I spent some time on loan there, played there as well as a visiting player on numerous occasions. It's a big old pitch, and big pitches favour footballing sides, and Swindon, I think, will make that pitch feel very, very big for a Carlisle team that have struggled massively, failed to score in 8 home games already this season, which is miserable. Keith Millen's come in. It's not really clicked for him. There are issues behind the scenes. It's an unhappy club, unfortunately, at the moment. It's quite sad to see it. Swindon has scored in 25 of 30 games. I fancy them to get on the score sheet, once or twice bare minimum. And yeah, with Carlisle's record, I think that might be enough to see them through. So yeah, I think this is an attractive price for a top team against one of the weaker sides in the division.
All right, good stuff. Mark O'Haire, we head to Italy, and I know there isn't kind of major goal angles this week, but there's one BTTS angle in particular, Inter against Sassuolo. Inter, look, we talked about a pre-recording. I thought they were quite good last night. I know Liverpool won 2-0. Look, Liverpool deserved to win, but that's no bad Inter side. And obviously, look, you get Barella back in here, and Inzaghi's getting in tune with the team. Top scorers as well in the league, Mark.
Yeah, I do like Inter domestically. I thought they played, as you said, pretty well against Liverpool. Hit the bar in the first half, and put Liverpool under pressure for a good 20-minute spell in the second period as well. So, yeah, we talked off goal trends have dipped a little bit in Serie A, and recently the goals per game average is down to 2.99. But both teams have scored still in 58% of matches, and that's what's interesting me here, because we've got a goal expectancy in this match at 3.65 goals, which is quite high, and the goal line is set around 3.5. But both teams to score is coming in at 1.7. And normally, if you've got a goal expectancy that high and a goal line set at 3.5, that BTTS price would be a lot shorter. So are we really expecting Inter to win this match 4-0? I mean, it's entirely possible and plausible. They're that good. But I think it's probably unlikely, considering the schedule that they've had to deal with recently, which is a Milan derby, away game at Napoli, both obviously Scudetto title rivals, and then the Champions League tie. They've also had Coppa Italia matches to contend with too. So they had Roma last midweek as well. So it's been a really busy schedule for Inter. I said in the Champions League podcast, they've not been as dominant or defensively assured as you might imagine of late, and they're coming up against one of the best attacking teams in the division in Sassuolo, a team we've done to death all season. That's because they've scored in all but 4 of their matches, including 14 of 15 games against teams above them. They fancy themselves when they play the bigger teams. They've already won at Milan. They've already won at Juventus. They've beaten Napoli at home. And they've also held Napoli, and so they've held Roma as well. But yeah, I mean, they're not intimidated by the bigger surroundings. And they've also got Raspadori back. They've got Scamacca back as well, 2 of their key sort of leading lights in forward areas. But they're about one of the best centre halves this weekend as well, Ferrari. And this is a team that's only kept 2 clean sheets all season. So you do the maths together, and they've seen both teams scoring in 20 of 25 games, including 14 of 15 against teams above them in the table. So I think they can play their part in an enjoyable game here. Inter have Bastoni suspended, their best centre half. They've conceded in 12 of 16 games against teams in 13th and above this season, including 6 of 7 at San Siro as well. So they tend to do their best, most ruthless work against the worst teams in the division. I don't think Sassuolo come into that category. So, yeah, just quite happy to support the underdogs getting on the score sheet here, because Inter certainly will.
Great stuff. Adrian, I cut you off there. You actually had a second pick. This one from the Championship, Stoke to beat Birmingham at 1.83. I think if you look early in the season with Stoke, their home record at the 365 wasn't great, but the last couple of weeks they've been in good form.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the results haven't reflected their performance levels, in my opinion. The January business that Michael O'Neill and Stoke City did has rejuvenated the team. It's fantastic, it really is. Jagielka came in at the back, with a couple of others. You've got Philogene Bidace from Aston Villa on loan, who's doing fantastically. Not an easy name to pronounce, but a really good player. Lewis Baker has come in, the perennial loanee from Chelsea, and he's been outstanding. Up front, they've got a wealth of options. Jacob Brown's been in great nick, but they've got other players as well that have been chipping in. Tyrese Campbell coming back to full fitness as well. So, yeah, they're looking good. They were very unlucky not to beat Nottingham Forest last weekend. They battered Swansea in their last home game. It's putting results together that's been the issue for them. But my eyes tell me that this is a team that's climbing the league. They look like a Middlesbrough that are sort of heading in one direction. Birmingham beat Luton actually last time out at St Andrews, but they've got no defenders fit at the moment. They've got, I think, is it Mengi from Manchester United on loan? He's a centre half, and that's it. So they're using 2 fullbacks, Pedersen and Collan, as auxiliary centre halves. They've got 2 really attacking wing backs. I think Bella and Graham, wingers really. And I just feel against the Stoke side that are attacking very well at the moment. They might come under a lot of strain in this game. They haven't won away since the end of October either, Birmingham. So they're not brilliant travellers this season. So yeah, for me, Stoke, this has the look of a home win and potentially a comfy one too.
All right, solid case there as ever. Before we get to best bets, we've obviously covered a lot there, and if you want to get involved in this, we enhanced the best bets double again last week. We needed one more goal in the Empoli game as well to get that up. Mark was unlucky, but these things happen. £20 welcome offer available now if you want to sign up at matchbook.com. Insights RF is the code you need to use when signing up to avail of this offer. Full terms and conditions can be found at insights.matchbook.com. It's Insights RF. And you know what? If you want to do the best bet double, if you want to do it anywhere else, you're going to get the back if it loses. So it's not bad at all. All right, Mark O'Haire, your best bet comes from Bundesliga, local derby in the area, Borussia Dortmund against Borussia Mönchengladbach. You fancy Dortmund to win it over 1.5, and it's 1.78. Is this more pro Dortmund, or is it just because Gladbach have been absolutely brutal in the last couple of weeks? Do you remember back in December when they beat Bayern 5-0 in the Pokal? It seems like a long time ago, Mark.
Weird team, really weird team. But yeah, it's a bit of both, really. Dortmund, as the league table suggests, are the closest challengers to Bayern. Performance data also marks Dortmund now as being the second best team in the Bundesliga, but they're a million miles away from Bayern. There is no title race, even if the gap is now just 6 points. But yeah, the bulk of their best work is done at Signal Iduna Park, really, for Dortmund. 9 wins from 11. They are a bit of an attacking force when they play at home. And obviously, their last home match against Leverkusen, they were totally embarrassed, really. But I thought they bounced back really impressively last weekend to beat Union 3-0 away in Berlin. Rare that the team wins with such ease in the capital. So, yeah, I'd like to think that they can build on that against a Gladbach team who we know are pretty feeble at the best of times. A Dortmund team who've scored at least twice in all 11 of their home Bundesliga games so far this season. So, yeah, Gladbach, just a really fascinating team, fascinating case study, really. Just 4 points above the relegation playoff place, and obviously recently lost their exceptional sporting director. Their form has nosedived since November, 6 defeats and 10, includes a 6-0 shellacking at home to Freiburg. Did beat Augsburg 3-2 last weekend, but beating Augsburg at home is not really anything to write home about, even if they did so scoring 3 goals, because they conceded twice as well, and defensively they have been pretty hopeless. Just the 2 clean sheets all season. They give up 1.82 goals per game on average. Performance data, expected goals data suggests that's about right as well, which is obviously quite alarming. And my ratings have them in the bottom half this season, which is almost unheard of for a team like Gladbach. And yeah, away record, 6 defeats in 11. It's 8 defeats in 13 against the top 10. Weirdly, they have turned over Dortmund and Bayern domestically in the league so far this season, which is quite puzzling, really. But this is a venue where they do tend to crumble. Really quite surprised, actually, how bad the record was. I knew it was pretty poor, but actually they've lost 15 of the last 16 away trips to Dortmund. And if you imagine that the Gladbach team to come here has often been a lot stronger than the one that's going to go there on Sunday. That's a worry. And obviously the final sort of elephant in the room is Erling Haaland. We know he's absent for the midweek game against Rangers in the Europa League, but there's talk that he may train towards the end of the week with a view to being involved at some point at the weekend, but that's still sort of 50-50. So I think the price has actually just drifted to about 1.8, which is obviously much more palatable and interesting. But yeah, it's Dortmund for me.
Look, and just very quickly before I go to Adrian, just regards Dortmund and their struggles in recent times, a lot of it has been to do with the defence, but the free transfer signing of Niklas Süle for next year, I think is a major statement of intent. And even to get a Bayern guy over to Dortmund on a free, it generally used to be the other way around. So I think that's a positive move. And hopefully, well, he'll hope this. Hopefully Marco Rosa will still be in the job, of course, this time next year. All right, Adrian, sorry, I kept you waiting there a bit, mate, with my Dortmund rant again. Chris Wilder at Middlesbrough, this new manager bounce, it's continuing in a major way. 27 points from 39 available, and they've been flying. Sorry, I should precursor this for those in the podcast. That's bad hosting there. Adrian fancy Middlesbrough to beat Bristol City at 2.12. Take it away, Lucy.
Yes, well, across the last 10 games, Middlesbrough are the best team in the Championship, even better than Fulham. 23 points gathered across those 10 matches. Only 6 goals conceded as well. They're very solid. What he's doing is doing what he did at Sheffield United. He's picking the same keeper, the same back three, the same midfield, and the same wing backs, and then he's mixing up the strikers, just keeping it fresh. He's got 4 or 5 decent ones to choose from, and it's a formula that works in the Championship for the Blades, and it's working really well for Middlesbrough at the moment as well. Bristol City have conceded in the last 11 games, which is obviously a problem. They can't defend. I think they've averaged way over 2 goals per game against during that stretch as well, Bristol City. So you'd have to fancy Middlesbrough to get at them. They're full of confidence to score, 1, 2, 3 goals here. No problem at all. Now, Bristol City are a side that score consistently themselves. Have actually scored in 12 successive games. So they've got a little bit of firepower. But this Middlesbrough team, they are solid. You've got Dykesdale, McNair, and Dale Fry as the back three. And it's one of the best units in the Championship, if not the best defensive unit in the Championship at the moment. This might be where Bristol City fall short. And their home form has not been great for a long, long time down there in the West Country. So, no, I just think this is quite an attractive price on Middlesbrough, 2.12. The form team in the division against a side that leaks goals for fun. So, yeah, I'd strongly fancy Borough. I'd fancy them against most teams this weekend, but yeah, it's an eye catcher. Bristol City, you can't trust them at the back. I think they'll be hard pushed to get anything out of this game.
All right, so the best bet double will be up from Thursday afternoon under the podcast specials tab at matchbook.com. It will be Dortmund and over 1.5 versus Gladbach and Middlesbrough to beat Bristol City. It'll be about 3.8. And like I said last week, and a few of you actually took me up on this, if you see it better elsewhere, please drop me a DM on Twitter or hit Team Matchbook on Twitter. Ray Winston's favourite sportsbook, they price topped your one AC. City to win to 0. So we had to go further again. So they probably watch the podcast and go, hey, Adrian Clarke, he doesn't know. Yeah, we'll top this. We'll top this. All right. They definitely didn't, though. Yeah, they definitely probably didn't.
I don't want to mess with Ray, though. I don't want to upset him.
I wouldn't mess with him, no. Insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of those bets. We'll see you next week. Best of luck this week.